We're going to show you everything you need to know to run a carrier from turning on the PTO all the way to the strap down the vehicle. Let's get into it. Almost every truck platform, turning on the PTO is going to be different. We are in a Kenworth here. You can see on the dashboard, it's labeled really easy for us. It's red flip up, switches underneath. You can hear the pump begin to whine in the background. This truck is set up to automatically run engine idle up to 1200 RPM. Whatever vehicle platform you're using, you may have to actually manually adjust your fast idle to run the hydraulics a little bit faster to speed things up back there. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna assume that you can get the carrier backed up in front of whatever vehicle you're gonna be towing. Here we have an F-150 we're gonna tow. We've got it pulled up behind the carrier. It's pretty much a straight on pull. So we're gonna assume that the bare minimum you can get there. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna show you how to operate the functioning of the bed from the sliding to the tilting and the winch operation. So let's take a look at that. This is a Miller carrier. This is a 21-foot Century in aluminum. And the only three levers we're going to worry about for the operation of the bed for the time being is the two blue ones and the red one. This is your slide function, your tilt function, and then this is your winch function here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to roll the bed out of the locks. So we're going to bring it back about that far. So I want to show you what the bed lock looks like and its intention. Come on. So this is the bed lock. And when the bed slides forward, this channel right here will slide over the bed lock. And what's intended to do is as you're traveling down the road and you have a load on the carrier deck, it's to prevent the front end of the carrier from rising. So it actually locks into that lock. So again, this is a Miller product. If you're using another manufacturer's product, you need to become familiar with the bed lock and how long it really is. Because realistically, we can slide this bed back about that far and clear the lock before we start tilting it up. So we showed you how to bring the bed out of the locks. The next thing you want to do is once you have the bed out of the locks, you want to tilt the bed all the way up and you want to get this gear all the way on the ground. So we're going to take and raise the bed all the way up till the gear hits the ground. And what we're doing here is we're creating a stable environment where you have a really large footprint in the truck from the front axle all the way to the rear axle. And when you load the vehicle, it gets loaded over that entire footprint, and then that gear is doing what it's intended to do. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna slide our bed back. And you'll notice I have my chain bridle and I have my 8-point kit already set up in the truck, and they're gonna be hanging out of these chain slots. So we're going to remove those so we don't have our gear hit the ground. Set those aside for loading. So while we're on the subject of free spool, if you need to free spool the winch and you're not long armed like I am and can't reach over there, or you don't have an air free spool down here in the control box, you're going to want to free spool that winch before you get to this point. So come on up, I'll show you how to free spool the winch. This was going to vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. If you look, this is actually set up with a two-sided free spool. We're on the driver's side. On this Miller product, we're going to simply pull it out and then set it down, and it's going to free spool the winch, and we can walk to the end of the carrier deck and pull out as much line as we need. So we're gonna go back down, set the bed down, and then engage the car. So we've got the bed on the ground, we've got the winch and free spool, so we're able to pull out as much line as we need to then toss all of our gear onto the front of the vehicle and then locate the attachment points on the frame. So the vehicle we're towing is a 2023 F-150, and the factory attachment point on this vehicle is in the bottom of the front frame rail, and it's this slot right here. Slide a mini J in there, we'll slide another one on that side, and then we'll draw on the line tension, begin to winch it to the carrier. All of our connections are made to the front of the vehicle. We're gonna then disengage the freewheel on the winch. I'm gonna show you one trick after we do that. So when you disengage the freewheel on the winch, it's going to allow the winch to re-engage as you run the control on the bed. But there are dogs inside the winch that mesh into each other. And what you're going to want to do to preserve the life of the winch on the truck is you're going to want to run your winch line in and out. Just pull on it, run it out, run it back in. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow them to seat into each other like a gear. What usually happens is they'll kind of ride up on the top of each other's teeth, and over time you will wear out the dogs inside the winch, and you risk a freewheel when you're in the middle of a winching operation, and you could completely lose a vehicle. So keep that in mind. It just takes a couple seconds to do it the right way. Do it the right way every time, and you're going to mitigate any issues you're going to have in the future. The winch is engaged. We made sure we've got the dogs seated in the winch. Now we're ready to winch the vehicle to the carrier deck. You will see that I like to run with my gear on the deck. I've pulled it all aside, and we're gonna pull the car up right between all the gear. As you can see, we're running kind of close to our gear over here. So what we want to do is we want to get the truck traveling up that way on the carrier deck. But before we get in the customer's vehicle, we want to make sure we always take off our gloves. We don't want to be getting in the customer's vehicle with greasy gloves and getting the steering wheel or anything in the vehicle full of dirt. So after a very minor adjustment, we're going to run the winch and bring the vehicle to the carrier deck. So what we've done here is we've allowed the vehicle to travel over to this side of the deck to get the back end over as well. So now we're going to cut the wheel back over to the passenger side of the carrier deck, square the vehicle up on the carrier deck, bring it as far up as we need to get it to strap down, and then strap it down. So you can see we didn't succeed in what we really wanted to do. We wanted to get the front end over more, but we can get this done winching the vehicle back off the carrier in reverse. So what we'll do is we'll cut the wheel the other way, sharper, let the front end walk over, and then we'll pull it straight up. So now we have the wheels cut to the driver's side. It's going to walk the front end over where we want it. All we're going to do is winch out a little bit. Allow the vehicle to roll back. Come back here. Probably needs to go back a little bit more to get squared up in the bed. That's good right there. Again, take our gloves off. So what we want to do when we're bringing the vehicle onto the carrier deck and we're using the 8-point system, we want to make sure that we're centered up between two sets of chain slots we want to use. So I want to use this chain slot, and I want to use this chain slot for the front tire, and then I want to use that chain slot and the chain slot back there for the rear tire. So we've got the vehicle exactly where we want it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the first corner of this 8-point kit. So when we're installing these 8-point kits, you have an intermediate strap called the dog bone. And then you have the main strap. What you want to do is you want to feed the main strap around the top of the tire. And you want it to come out at about the 10 and 2 position, and you want your dog bone, your intermediate strap, to be around hub level. When you're installing these, you do not want to get the straps down here and the dog bone down here, because you're trying to keep this back part of the strap out of ball joints, sensor wires, brake hoses, all that in back, and either damage the vehicle or compromise your strap and possibly lose a load. So if you come and you look through the tire, you see we're set up good through the wheel. We got good exit points here. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna thread our ratchet, gauge our chain and our chain slot down here. And there is a secret to using these ratchets. If you take and you pull these ratchets tight like this, for these straps to work correctly, they need to have what's called thread lock. So this spool needs to wind up the nylon material on itself to lock into itself. So you can see we've got some good slack here. We're going to have good penetration on the spool. We're going to winch it down until it's tight. You take a look at the tire, you can see there's some deflection here and deflection here. this will not damage the tire in the name of transporting the vehicle. So we've got good retention, straps tight, all the legs are tight. We're good back there. From here, all we have to do is install the other 3 corners. One more demonstration. Again, pull some slack up in your 8-point and your main strap. Fish it over the top of the tire. Get it set at a good exit point. Now here's a little trick. If you're messing around and you get your strap to where it's really far back here, if you ever want to have it biased, you want to have it biased in the direction away from the ratchet. So again, the ratchet's down here, we're biasing this way a little bit, and again, as I strap this down, as I run the ratchet, you're going to see this intermediate strap or the dog bone walk this way. Again, we're getting good strap penetration on the spool here on the ratchet, and as you watch this, you'll see it's walking across the wheel, and when we're done, it's going to end up centered in the wheel, side to side, top to bottom, right about the hub level. Again, we're good back here. We can see we're good back here. So we have our 2 front retention points on, and what we're going to do in the name of making this easier on ourselves is we're going to slide the bed forward so we're not crouching down to run those rear ratchets. So I want to show you something. We have our gear on the ground down here. Our gear is creating a stable environment for us. We have the rear deck on the ground back here. The deck is pinned on the ground a little bit because we've loaded the truck. So what we want to do is come up here and we want to tilt the bed down a little bit, bring that carrier body up off the ground. You'll see we still have our gear on the ground here. So we have a stable environment with our gear on the ground. We're going to take and run our bed forward, and we're not going to go all the way forward because we don't want to have to then slide back to get in the lock. So we're going to run our gear forward enough to where we have a working environment that is, waist to chest level, so we're not having to work up here or having to work down here. So we've created a favorable work environment for us as operators. Something else to concern yourself with when you're transporting vehicles is what you're going to do with this, because you get going down the highway in the wind, this is invariably going to come up, chafe the customer's car. So you want to find a way to control this. And when the tail is short like this, sometimes it's easier to take it, double it up, open the ratchet, feed it through, push it down, latch it. Something else to pay attention to. We went from this chain slot all the way back to the tire and then down. And if you come over and look at this side, we went from this chain slot to the tire and down. When you have a truck like this where you have a lot of options for your chain slots for your retention, this is a better method for strapping down the vehicle than that is. The shorter you can make this run and the steeper you can make these angles, because we walk back over here again, you're going to see we have this long, shallow angle, but we have a nice steep angle here. Realistically, we'd want this chain end in this slot like we did over there. This geometry gives you better control of the vehicle. On some carrier decks, your chain slot selection is going to be very limited. You may have only one back here, one in the middle of the carrier deck, one at the top. You got to work with what you got to work with. It's going to look like that over there. But if you have the options that you have on this deck, always go for those short, steep angles because you're going to have better control of the vehicle when you're going down the road. From here, we're going to tilt the bed down, run the carrier forward, put it in its locks, and we'll be ready for transport. So as we bring the carrier deck and the vehicle forward, we're going to be transferring more weight into the truck, into its front axle. So again, we're going to want to slide this carrier deck as far forward as we can and then still get in the lock. So we can't go all the way up, but we got to go almost all the way up, and this is a muscle memory learned thing based on whatever carrier you're using. Once we have the carrier deck down, we want to go real gentle into the locks. We don't want to take and smash the locks, because over time you can compromise those locks and roll them forward if they get rusted or anything. If you're in the northern states, you get a lot of salt and the locks get rusted, you can clean them off. So when we got the deck flat and we're going to go into locks, we want to go into locks real gentle. It's a very slow trip forward. We're completely stroked out. We're in the locks. We're good to go for transport. So from here, we're going to take one more walk around the vehicle, make sure everything looks the way we want it to look. Relieve our winch tension a little bit just so it's not riding on the winch as we're going down the road. because you do not want to retain a vehicle with the winch, so you don't want that cable pounding that winch as it's going down the road. So lighten up your line tension there, and we're good to go. We've successfully reached our destination. We're gonna now unload the vehicle. So it's fundamentally the complete reverse of loading the vehicle, except as you're unloading, there's a couple things to pay attention to, like the gear down here we were talking about when we were getting ready to bring the vehicle on the carrier deck. So again, the first thing we wanna do, we wanna slide our bed back to get out of the locks. Once we're out of the locks, go ahead and raise the carrier deck so our gear is firmly on the ground. And while we are this far up, we might as well remove these rear attachment points that are in those chain slots in the end of the carrier deck, because if you come around here and look, this chain is hanging down, and if we don't remove them now, we're gonna set the carrier deck down those chains, and we're gonna have to lift it back up and resolve that. So let's just go ahead and remove those rear attachment points right now. We're gonna take and set all of our gear to the side, so as the vehicle comes off, it will not roll over any of our gear, damage any of our ratchets and such. Again, you will see how easy these 8 points are coming off the top of the tires. It's an indication that I did not get into any bolts, cotter pins, anything that is going to impinge that strap in there and keep me from being able to pull it over the top of the tire. So we're over here. I'm gonna keep bringing the bed back. Keep sliding it back. Until our carrier deck hits the ground. We have this truck aired down. So this is an air suspension truck. We have this truck aired down. So when we roll the F-150 off the carrier deck, this deck should not rise. If you're dealing with a different platform that has a conventional steel spring suspension, what you'll want to probably do is once you get the carrier deck on the ground, you're going to want to load it into the ground. So maybe take and give it a little bit of tilt up, and you're going to take and force that edge into the ground. So when you back the vehicle off, that bed does not rise and possibly tap that front bumper as it comes off of the carrier. Again, you'll see how easy those come off. Means they're not stuck on anything. From here, all we need to do is roll the vehicle off of the carrier deck. This one runs, park it in a parking spot, take the keys into service, however it's going to get handled. If you're backing into a spot, put it in the spot it's going into, and then deliver the keys to whoever's taking it on the end. We're going to place the vehicle in park so we do not have a rollaway. Again, we're going to take and we're going to pull our freewheel to release the winch line and come over, pull a little slack. From there, we are going to disengage the attachment points on the front of the vehicle. The attachment points are disengaged from the front of the vehicle. Vehicle's in park. We will not have a rollaway event. From here, all we need to do is get the bed out from underneath the vehicle, put our gear up, deliver the vehicle to the shop or wherever it's going, get in the truck, go to the next call. So easiest thing to do here is roll the bed forward a little bit, pull our gear forward a little bit, come forward a little more, get our gear off the street, the last thing here is stowing your gear. Like I said before, I like to run the gear on the deck so it's out and it's ready to go when I need it. The only other thing that's really of concern is what to do with the bridle. When I leave the bridle on the end of the carrier deck, I like to have it on that side. If I have to get out on the side of the highway, I'm not having to negotiate the gear on the traffic side of the truck. So I tend to put it over on this side of the vehicle. We're gonna go in here, we're gonna disengage our freewheel so we can run our winch function. I'm going to pull the gear to this side of the bed, drop it in that slot, drop it in that slot. We're going to go into the winch very, very lightly because all we want is We don't want our mini J's jammed in that chain slot, deforming this chain slot. We just want in there enough that it's not going to bounce around too much in the carrier deck. A little more, put up our 8-point kit, and we're done.